So this is a simple DHCP setup right here. I went ahead and put the configuration for you guys. It's just DHCP on a router and on a very simplistic network. So let's go ahead and get to it. You go into your router, open it up for the first time, always hit no, enable, and then configure terminal. I'm just typing in the shortcuts instead of the complete word. But I have that right here, enable configure terminal. And then the next thing you want to do is go into interface gigabit 0/0. Why 0/0? Because that's the one that's connected right here. That's the default gateway. That's the one that's connected to the network. That's what it's going to be working with. All right, so what are we going to label that as? It's going to be 192.168.0.1. Why is that? Because that's what we have in our configuration. All right, and that's going to be a Class C subnet. And you can just look right up here for the Class C subnet /24 insider notation. In decimal form is 255.255.255.0. Link that up. Oh, that's because at the beginning we have to put IP address. IP address. Or you could just do IP add for short, which is what I usually do. And then we're going to do no shutdown. All right, that basically just brought this interface up, and now it's fully connected. What we're going to do now is we're going to start doing the DHCP. All right, so I just put exit because I wanted to get out of that interface and just into the regular configuration mode. And now we're going to do excluded addresses first. You always exclude your addresses before you configure your DHCP pool, because as soon as your DHCP pool is configured, it's going to start handing out addresses, and you don't want it to hand out the addresses that you wanted to be excluded. Okay, so IP DHCP, actually we'll do IP, and then we'll do question mark. This is how you get to DHCP. Just type that in. And then what? Now you have three options. You can configure relay, which we'll do in another video. You can configure the pool, which we're going to do here in a second. But first, you configure your excluded addresses. So exclude tab, we'll finish that out, excluded addresses. And then we want to type in 192.168.0.1 through, because that's your low address, through 192.168.0/3. We're excluding 3 addresses for this scenario. All right. Oh, I accidentally put a dot on there. There we go. And now we want to do IP DHCP. All right. But then what? We want to do pool because we're going to configure the pool. And now it's asking you, what's the pool name? I'm going to say the name is Jeffy, but I'm going to do it in all caps because it's so much easier to find. So I put Jeffy's pool. And now we question mark. There's nothing left for that command, so hit enter. Notice how it took us out of regular configuration mode, and now we're within the DHCP pool. All right. Now we're going to do question mark to see what options we have. We have default router, DNS server, domain name. These are all DHCP options, okay? We have the exit command, which can take us out of the DHCP pool if we wanted to. We have the network, which is basically going to describe the IP addresses that are going to be prescribed to our devices through that network. And for this network right here, we're going to input this right here because that's the network we're working off of. All right, no to erase any configurations that we've done that aren't going to work. And then options. If you know other options by numbers, you can go ahead and do this one, but we're not going to get into that. We're just doing a very simplistic video. All right, so we're going to start off with default router. And I put in DEF and then hit tab and it finishes out the command. All right, and then it's asking us for the address 192.168.0.1. All right, and why is that the default route? Because it's right here. This is the default route for this subnet. Hit enter. And then what do we want to configure next? We want to configure DNS server. So DNS, tab, finishes that out. And then what's that? It wants us to know the IP address of the DNS server. Let's just do Google's, which is 8.8.8.8. And then what's next? Domain name. We aren't going to do a domain name. Like I said, this is a very simplistic setup. We're just going to shift on over to network. All right. And then question mark, it wants us to know the address of the actual network. The address is this, 192.168.0.0. All right. And then it wants us to know the network mask, the subnet mask ID. Well, Saturn notation says it's /24, which in decimal form is 255.255.255.0. All right. Exit. There we go. And now we have our complete setup. If you want to check that, do show run. All right. And now we're looking at this and we have our excluded addresses set up as .1 through .3, which is in our command line right here. And then we have Jeffy's pool, and inside of Jeffy's pool, it has the network of 192.168.0.0, which is right here, /24 or 255.255.255.0. And then default router is 192.168.0.1, which is right here, DNS Server 8.8.8.8. Now, get on down to interfaces. Notice how in these interfaces we have nothing because nothing is attached to those interfaces. All right, so interface 0/0, we have the IP address right here and the class C subnet address, which belongs in this subnet. And then notice how these say shut down and this doesn't say shut down. That's basically telling us we put in the no shutdown command, which means this is online. All right, let's get out of there. Let's see if this whole thing worked. Moment of truth. Hit DHCP to configure switching static to DHCP. So we're switching from static and we're going to DHCP in the IP settings. Perfect. 192.168.0.4 because we excluded 1 through 3. All right, and that's been DHCP. And we also configured these two options within it to hand it out. And this is the subnet mask we configured for it to hand out. So everything's correct. This has been a simple configuration DHCP video with DHCP on the router. Here soon, I'm going to go ahead and do a configuration video for relay and for 2 different subnets for a DHCP server, not on a router. But other than that, you guys have a wonderful day.